It was late, the music still pounding from the party, but my body ached for home. I turned to my son, the boy I had raised, and asked gently, "Can you drive me back?" He didn't even look up from his phone. "Figure it out, Mom." "I'm staying." The words cut sharper than the cold night air. I gathered my coat, walked out alone, and called a cab. 2 days later, the phone rang again, this time with desperation. My son's voice cracked. "Mom, I need your help." $25,000. Please. That night at the party, I had felt invisible. The room was full of chatter, glasses clinking, laughter bouncing off the walls. I tried to enjoy myself, but my energy was fading. At 65, I don't recover from late nights like I used to. I thought asking my son for a ride home was simple, reasonable. After all, how many rides had I given him over the years? To school, to practice, to friends' houses. How many times had I stayed awake, headlights guiding me through the dark, just so he'd get home safe? But when I asked, he dismissed me with a wave, his eyes glued to his phone. "Figure it out, Mom." Those 4 words stung more than I let on. I forced a smile, nodded, and walked out alone. Rain drizzled down, speckling my coat. I hailed a cab and rode in silence, staring at the blur of streetlights. At home, I hung my coat carefully, sat at the kitchen table, and let the hurt settle. It wasn't just about the ride. It was about the disregard, the way he treated me like a burden, instead of a mother who had given him everything. 2 days later, the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, still bruised from that night, but his voice was urgent, cracking with panic. "Mom, I need you. Something happened. I need $25,000. Please, I don't know who else to call for a moment." I sat frozen. 2 nights ago, he couldn't be bothered to give me 10 minutes of his time. And now, he wanted a sum that could pay for months of my life. I took a slow breath, letting the irony sink in. Because life has a way of teaching lessons. Sometimes it takes a rainy cab ride. Sometimes it takes $25,000. And I was about to decide which lesson he would learn. After I hung up the phone, I sat in silence, my hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of tea. $25,000. It wasn't pocket change. It was years of saving, nights of going without, careful planning for my own future. And yet it wasn't the money that made me hesitate. It was the memory of his voice 2 nights earlier. Flat, dismissive, telling me to figure it out. My mind drifted back to all the times I had figured it out for him. When he was 16 and wrecked his first car, I paid for repairs. When he struggled through college, I covered the tuition gap he couldn't manage. When he and his wife fell behind on rent, it was me who wrote the check, pretending it didn't hurt my budget. Over and over, I had stepped in, quietly, without complaint. And over, I had been forgotten the moment the crisis passed. I thought of the birthday dinners where he scrolled on his phone instead of talking to me. The holidays when he breezed in late, left early, barely noticing the food I'd spent hours preparing. Each slight had been small, but together they built a wall of disrespect. Now, with his voice trembling on the other end of the line, I felt a strange calm. For once, he needed me more than I needed him, but was helping him again really helping at all? I set down my cup and walked to my desk. In the drawer lay a ledger I kept. Old-fashioned, written in ink, line after line of expenses I had covered for him. Tuition, rent, medical bills. The total at the bottom made my chest tighten. Nearly $80,000 over the years. $80,000 given freely, without strings. And not once had he said, "Let me pay you back, Mom." I closed the book gently, as if sealing away years of sacrifice. This time had to be different, because love without respect turns into exploitation, and a mother's heart, no matter how giving, deserves more than to be treated like a bank on call. As the phone buzzed again on the counter, I knew the next words I spoke would matter more than any check I could ever write. When I finally agreed to meet him, we sat across from each other at a small cafe. The place was bustling with chatter, but at our table the air was heavy. He looked tired, hair unkempt, eyes rimmed red. For a moment, I almost forgot my anger. Almost. "Mom," he began, his voice low. "I'm in trouble. A business deal went bad. I owe money I don't have. If I don't come up with $25,000 fast, I could lose everything." He rubbed his temples, sighing. I didn't know who else to call. I stirred my tea slowly, letting the silence linger. Finally, I said, 2 nights ago, you knew exactly who not to call." Do you remember? He shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting away. That was different. I was, careless, I finished. Too busy to take 10 minutes to drive your mother home. His face tightened, shame flickering. I didn't mean it like that. Intentions don't erase actions, I said calmly. You left me to figure it out. And now you expect me to rescue you again. The weight of my words sank in. He leaned forward, desperation cracking through his pride. Mom, please! I know I've taken you for granted, but this is serious. If I don't pay, I could lose my business. My family could lose our home. I studied his face. For once, the arrogance was gone. He looked younger, smaller, like the boy who once clung to my hand on his first day of school. My heart softened, but not enough to erase the sting of years of disrespect. I have the money, I admitted. His eyes lit up instantly, hope rushing across his features. But, I continued firmly, it won't come without conditions. He froze, brows furrowing. Conditions. Yes, I said, because writing another check won't fix the problem. If you want this help, you're going to understand what it costs. Not just in dollars, but in respect. He sat back slowly, chewing on my words. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just a transaction. It was a reckoning. He stared at me, shock flickering across his face. Conditions? Mom, this isn't a game. I need real help. I folded my hands around my cup, keeping my voice steady. And I need real respect. Without it, there's nothing left to give. He leaned forward. What kind of conditions? I took a deep breath. First, if I lend you this money, it will be in writing. A proper agreement signed and witnessed. No more silent handouts that vanish without acknowledgement. His brow furrowed, but he nodded slowly. Second, I continued, you will repay it. Maybe not all at once, maybe not even quickly, but you will set aside something every month, and you'll send it to me, not because I need the money, but because you need to learn responsibility. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Third, I said, my tone firm, the next time I ask you for something as small as a ride home, you will treat me with the same urgency you expect from me now. No more dismissing me. No more telling me to figure it out. Respect is not optional. The words hung heavy between us. He looked down, his fingers tracing the rim of his empty cup. For once, he had no quick excuse, no careless shrug. Finally, he whispered, You're right. I tilted my head, unsure if he truly meant it. Am I? He nodded slowly. I've been selfish. I thought you'd always be there, no matter how I acted. But standing here now, I realize I don't deserve this help. Not after the way I treated you. His voice cracked, and for the first time in years, I saw humility in his eyes. I slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a copy of the loan agreement my lawyer had prepared after our last conversation, because part of me had known this moment would come. If you sign this, I said softly, I'll transfer the money. Not as a gift, as a lesson. He took the pen in shaking hands, and as the ink dried, I knew it wasn't just his debt being written down. It was the start of a new chapter, one where respect was finally spelled out in black and white. The ink had barely dried when he slid the signed paper back to me. His shoulders slumped, not in defeat, but in surrender to a truth he had ignored for too long. I'll do it, he murmured. I'll make the payments. I'll change. I studied him for a long moment, searching for sincerity, and for the first time in years, I saw it. Not arrogance, not entitlement, but genuine humility. The transfer went through the next morning. $25,000 left my account, but what it purchased wasn't just financial relief, it purchased accountability. At first, I expected the same pattern I'd seen before, gratitude that faded once the crisis passed. But this time was different. The first month, he sent a check, only a small amount, but with it came a handwritten note. Thank you, Mom. I'll never forget this. The second month, he didn't just mail a payment. He showed up at my door with groceries, insisting on cooking dinner for me. His clumsy attempt at roast chicken filled the kitchen with smoke, but I didn't mind. The effort mattered more than the taste. By the third month, the changes were clearer. He answered my calls without delay. He visited not just when he needed something, but simply to ask how I was doing. On one rainy evening, he even insisted on driving me home from church, umbrella in one hand, car door held open with the other. Small gestures, yes, but each one chipped away at the wall that years of neglect had built. My daughter-in-law noticed too. Her tone softened, her laughter less sharp. Perhaps she realized that respect for me had become part of their household rules, unwritten, but powerful. And though the debt would take years to repay, I no longer cared about the numbers. What mattered was the shift, the recognition that I was not just a safety net, but a person who deserved gratitude, dignity, and love. Sometimes it takes $25,000 to remind someone of a ride they once refused, but sometimes the real repayment comes not in money, but in changed behavior. As I sat at my kitchen table, sipping tea while his children played at my feet, I realized I hadn't just given my son a loan, I had given him a chance to finally grow up. In the end, it wasn't about the party. It wasn't about the rain or even the cab ride home. It was about respect, the kind that can't be bought, only earned. My son thought I'd always be there to rescue him, no matter how he treated me. But this time, I made sure the lesson cost him something. The money may have come from my account, but the real payment came from his change, his humility, his gratitude, his recognition that a mother is not a convenience, but a blessing. Now, when I ask for a ride, he doesn't hesitate. And when he looks at me, I see something I hadn't seen in years: respect. So tell me, have you ever been dismissed only to prove your worth in a way they never expected? Share your story in the comments, and stay tuned for more tales of lessons learned.